RPGs are my favorite genre of game. I think I talk about it a lot on this channel, and yet strangely, while I play a lot of them, I also feel like I haven't really experienced some of the more major series in the genre. I've mostly stayed within the Final Fantasy, Shin Megami Tensei, or Persona series. One series that, at least to me, seems well regarded, that I really have little experience with, is the Tales series. The latest game, Arise, came out on PS5, and I figured what better place to jump in? So is the Tales series worth checking out? You know what is worth checking out? This YouTube channel. Glad you're here. Nice to see you. Maybe like the video. Click the subscribe button. Now before I talk about Tales of Arise, I do have to be honest that this isn't truly my first Tales experience. I did play Vesperia on the Switch, but honestly was not very impressed with its gameplay. I also thought it really required grinding, which I am not a fan of in RPGs. I think that if you balance your game correctly, and I'm not one to shy away from encounters, especially in games like these where you can see the enemies on the map, and yet if I fight most of the enemies I encounter on my way to the boss, I should be able to handle the boss for the most part. I get maybe needing to do a little grinding, just get to the next level or something, but at least with Tales of Vesperia, it felt like that next level was very far away, and even to just get one level took like 30 battles, especially towards the late game, and that is just disrespectful of my time, I think. Even worse, I beat who I thought, and genuinely it felt like the game had been telling me for the 40 hours I had played it, the final boss. And then the game hits you with oh no, there's a secret bad guy that's been here the whole time pulling the strings, here he is, now spend another 15 hours to go beat him. That didn't work for me, at least in that game. Because it came out of nowhere, it felt unearned, and like I said, I was already a little over the game at that point anyway. I will say in Vesperia's credit that I found it pretty engaging, the story and characters, and was really surprised at how mature the story was. The main character literally murders a couple people at different points during the story. Is not something I feel like you normally see in a JRPG. A lot of talk about not the game I'm talking about, but I just wanted to give that context so that you kind of know where I was at coming into this game. Tales of Arise feels like they took all of my complaints with Vesperia and at least addressed them in some capacity, the result of which is a much more approachable and enjoyable game to play through. I don't think it's revolutionizing the JRPG genre, but it definitely ends up being a strong entry in the series. The story itself is nothing too crazy. You play as Alphen, a slave on the world of Dana, where they are ruled over by these people called Renans from the planet Rena. They're harvesting their energy to fuel what they call the crown contest. Alphen, of course, doesn't like being a slave and begins a quest to overthrow his oppressors. Very quickly, he meets Shion, who is a Renan. Shion also wants to take them out for her own personal reasons that do get revealed kind of as the story goes on. It's a forced alliance initially that, of course, as time goes on, grows to be more than that. The story itself is pretty simple. We have to take out these rulers, so we're going to go to each city on the map. We're going to have a little story that leads us to the ruler, and then we're going to fight and kill the ruler. Rinse and repeat. Nothing crazy, nothing special. But at the same time, the game does tackle some pretty heavy themes, such as slavery, racism, these ideas of hatred, and what it means to really hate someone, or you can have good individuals in groups that you've been taught to hate your whole life, even those who oppress you. There can be people in there that are good people, as Shion and Alphen kind of show each other. The story it's not going to win any awards for its narrative, And a lot of the dialogue is very heavy-handed and cliched, with characters essentially saying that, like, oh, just because I hate all of you doesn't mean there's not some good people in your group, and things like that, but doesn't shy away from those topics. Even with the romance, again, this is something that always bothers me in JRPGs, where, like, obviously these two characters like each other, but they have to pretend like they're just friends or whatever. This game, for the most part, avoids that kind of cheesy stuff. The individual characters are not anything special. They are walking cliches. You've seen all of them before. But credit to the voice actors, I never got tired of them. I never got tired of the dialogue. The game will constantly throw these kinds of conversations at you that you can watch between the characters, and it really does give a lot of personality to them. It gets a little tedious by the end of the game. There are like 300 of these to watch through. It's definitely a nice touch that the series has, and I do enjoy it for the most part. Graphically, I think the game looks okay. Broad stroke, it's nothing impressive. This was originally a last-gen game, but I think the particle effects, especially, are really good in this game. Some of the finishing moves that you do really pop and look great. The music as well is fantastic. I do wish they had mixed the audio a little better. It felt like it was hard to hear voices over the music, and sometimes some sound effects were way too loud, drowned everything out. But the mixing aside, the soundtrack, the sound design is actually pretty good. Combat in the game is pretty interesting. You control only one character at a time. You can kind of quickly swap between characters if you want, and each one really does fit a specific role. You have 6 characters with a party size of 4, and you really are required to, especially for some of the later game bosses or some of the post-game bosses, you really need to think about the kind of party you want to have going into that battle. During battle, the AI controls the other 3. The AI is fine for the most part. Every once in a while, you'll have your mage run into melee range for some reason and then just get one-shot by a boss. On the whole, I found the AI pretty passable. Never really caused me to get too frustrated with the game. The combat itself is pretty fun. It's a real-time sort of combat with a single attack button and a dodge button, and then you have 3 other buttons for doing arts. You have 2 sets of arts, one when you're on the ground and one when you're on the air, and then you have a second set of both of those that you can again switch between on the fly. You unlock that second set about halfway through the game. I think the combat worked pretty well. You get into a good groove with it of attacking into your little arts, reading the enemy to dodge their attacks. If you dodge perfectly, you get a chance to kind of counterattack. It flows really well. It felt pretty good. It was pretty engaging. I found myself enjoying it quite a lot. So like Tales of Vesperia, the story does have kind of a second part where you get through the first part of this game, going through the crown contest and collecting the 5 orbs. You kind of know that, like, there's got to be something more going on. There's some weird things happen. I don't want to spoil the story, but it's at least more set up in this game that there's going to be more to this story than kind of what they've presented to you at the beginning. The big issue, though, is that second part of the story is, like, so out of left field and so out there that it requires 2 hours of just straight exposition. It just completely grinds the narrative to a halt. I played through the first 30 hours of this game in a few sittings. I just blasted through it. I played through the last, like, 5 to 10 hours of this game in about 5 to 10 sittings. It was just painful, which is such a shame because the beginning part of the game, yeah, it was simple, it was straightforward, you kind of knew what you were doing from a story perspective, but it just kept moving. Get to a new town, quick story, cutscene, go explore a dungeon, another cutscene, go explore another dungeon, cutscene, final boss, move on, cutscene, move on to the next area. The end of the game is just cutscene, 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 talking, and it just drags on forever. If you can get past that, though, the game itself is a lot of fun to play. I really enjoyed it. Definitely a solid RPG. And if you have no familiarity with the Tales series, I think it's a good place to start. I feel like, and from what I've read online, it seems like this is the peak as far as the combat. I know I didn't think Tales of Vesperia's combat resonated with me as much as Arise's did, so it might be hard to go back to older games in the series, Either way, this is still a solid RPG. It ran great on the PS5, got a solid 60 FPS on it, and it's just a lot of fun. For a final rating, I would give the presentation a 4 out of 5, the story a 3.5 out of 5, the gameplay a 4 out of 5, with a rating of 4 out of 5. For value, I'd say maybe get it on sale. It's not revolutionizing the genre, but it's fun. But what do you guys think? Is Tales of Arise the best Tales game? Are others better? Should I play other Tales games? Let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what game you'd like me to review next, and I will see you all with the next video.